Welcome to another transfer tips video ahead of game week 26. We've been talking about UCL Fantasy and FPL non-stop for the last few weeks, but now let's just get straight into this and talk about the best players to buy, hold, sell and skip ahead of double game week 26. A massive shout out to all the subscribers, all the channel members and everyone who has joined the Discord server, that's followed on Twitter and Instagram. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing. We're almost at 10,000 subscribers and let's try to get this video to 150 likes. I think we can definitely do that. And in terms of the players to buy, let's start off with Heung-min Son. He features so much in these transfer tips videos, but it's kind of a roller coaster with him. At times he's injured, and that's why I was talking about selling him around a month or two ago. And now I think he is a buy, despite a blank against Wolves. And most people will be looking at Spurs and thinking, you know what, I don't want to go for their assets, but I still think Son is one of the best players in the game, and he's only blanked once when available in a long period of time, I think since game week 12. So he's a very consistent player, and I would definitely go for him over Harry Kane if it was, down to a choice of Kane or Son. But also at the same time, your team might be different and it might be more convenient for you to go for Kane instead of Son and avoid taking yet another hit in order to bring in the South Korean. But in most people's cases, I think Son would be the primary candidate. And yes, he's facing City, but he's got a good record against them and a decent record against the Clarets as well. And then some good fixtures like Leeds away, Everton at home, and you could arguably say Man United away too. Then after that, still some good fixtures, I think, for the most part. So for me, Heung-min Son is one of the best players to get. His stats across the season are decent, especially his XG and also big chances. But with him, he is quite clinical. At times, he does miss the occasional big chance, but for the most part, very clinical. And I think Heung-min Son is worth buying. The second player on the buy list is Bukayo Saka. I haven't really spoken about him too much in these transfer tips videos, but here we are. Bukayo Saka, I think he's a kind of a hot topic right now, and I can see why. He's got a double in 26. Yes, he blanks in 27, but then a potential double in 28. It could be Chelsea forming that double with Watford, but still, I think it's decent. And then some very good fixtures for Arsenal, and it's just a sea of green up until the end of the season. The games that are yet to be rescheduled aren't great, and that includes Chelsea and Tottenham, but for the most part, Arsenal have some fantastic fixtures. Saka's stats are decent, especially around this price. An XG of exactly 5. His expected assist is just under that figure as well. 6 big chances and 6 big chances created. In terms of goals and assists, very, very balanced in terms of the underlying numbers as well as the actual goal output. Decent shot volume, 37 shots inside the box and 47 shots overall. I think Saka is one of the best players around this price, and he's actually a really good purchase from now. And he hasn't maybe shone too much recently, but Arsenal have kind of been on and off, not only in terms of their form, but also the amount of games they played in 2022. A lot of games that have yet to be rescheduled, and Arsenal are kind of falling behind in terms of all the games in hand they have. But Saka, I think, is worth it. And despite that blank in 27, if you can navigate that without a free hit or even with the free hit, that's fine. I still would recommend going for Saka if you can go for it. And right now, it's very clear that between him, Odegaard, Smith Rowe, Martinelli, Saka is the clear victor. And even over Lacazette, who's a decent attacker to consider in double game week 26. I think if you had to pick one, Saka is the standout. And the only Arsenal player I'd recommend even more is the goalkeeper Aaron Ramsdale. The final player on this buy list this week is Tarkowski. I mean, wow. Me recommending a Burnley defender, yeah. I mean, the main reason really is the 2 double game weeks in a row, and I really like that double in 27. The doubles in 26 aren't great, and I think Burnley might even struggle to keep one clean sheet there, but Leicester and Crystal Palace in 27, both teams struggle a lot from set pieces, and Tarkowski and Ben Mee, to name a few examples, can definitely take advantage of that. The fixtures after that are still pretty decent. Chelsea is really poor, but then Brentford away and Southampton at home are okay. But for the most part, Burnley's fixtures aren't great. Burnley are struggling. They've only got 1 win all season, but they've shown improvement recently, and I think they can cause problems even to some of the best teams in the league. And I think Burnley might even struggle to keep one clean sheet there. But Leicester and Crystal Palace in 27, both teams struggle a lot from set pieces, and Tarkowski and Ben Mee, to name a few examples, can definitely take advantage of that. The fixtures after that are still pretty decent. Chelsea is really poor, but then Brentford away and Southampton at home are okay. But for the most part, Burnley's fixtures aren't great. Burnley are struggling. They've only got 1 win all season, but they've shown improvement recently, and I think they can cause problems even to some of the best teams in the league. And in terms of goal threat, Tarkowski is right up there with 15 shots inside the box, an XG of over 2 and 4 big chances. Decent stats for a centre-back, 1 goal and 2 assists. So all the shots he's had are inside the box, which makes sense. He's a centre-back. All of them are going to come from set pieces. But I would go for Tarkowski if you are looking for a defender, especially maybe a replacement for Reguilon if you want to sell him, or Cucurella, or any of these single game weekers that you want to offload, maybe a Man United defender. Despite the fact that I'm not a big advocate of Burnley defence, if I were to go for one, and if there was ever a time to get one in, it would be right now, and I'd go for Tarkowski. Speaking about another Clarets player, we're going with Workhorst here, or Workhorst, however you want to call him, but let's just wait and see what the injury situation is like, and if he is all cleared and he's ready to go in 26, I think he's worth buying because there's not many strikers that are appealing right now, and he's got 2 doubles in a row. We talked about the fixtures already up until game week 30, and Workhorse has been pretty decent actually, showing some very good signs since coming to the Premier League, and his XG and XA are just under 1, and he's only played 3 games, and he got substituted off against Liverpool with that injury. 1 assist, no goals, 8 shots and 6 inside the box, 1 big chance and 1 big chance created, and that assist did come against Manchester United. But Workhorst, I think, is probably one of the better strikers right now. Now, that's not saying much because all the strikers are lackluster, but 6.5 million, 2 doubles in a row. If he's fit, I think he's definitely worth inclusion, and if you have him, I would definitely hold him just in case. And in my situation, I've got Dennis coming off the bench if Workhorse doesn't play at all, but that's kind of the worst case or last resort really. So let's wait and see what happens there, and until then I think Workhorse is a hold. If he's out for a long time, then that's when I would be talking about selling him, but right now I think I'd keep the Dutchman. We're talking about a lot of Arsenal players in this video, and yet another one that I haven't really spoken about this season is Tomiyasu. He's back in training. He's still flagged, I think, at 50% chance of playing with that calf injury, but I think Tomiyasu will start. He's crucial to Arsenal. He gives them that defensive stability on the right-hand side. Cedric played all right, actually, against Wolves. A pretty decent performance, but I would still expect the Japanese international to slot back in when fully fit and available, and I think he is going to be. So if you have Tomiyasu, I would hold him. I prefer Tierney and Gabriel. I think they're the 2 best defenders from Arsenal, and Ramsdale's the ultimate defensive coverage for the Gunners. But Tomiyasu is still decent and offers very good value for money, and he can get bonus points from time to time, and there's kind of a nice debate between him and Ben White. You could argue Tomiyasu's even better, but I would keep Tomiyasu. He's got a blank in 27, but if you have enough, so maybe a triple up in Liverpool and Tomiyasu as your outfield players, that's fine. You don't even need to use the free hit in 27 to navigate that, but at the same time, be open-minded. A free hit in game week 27 isn't the worst idea in the world. His attacking stats aren't great, to be honest. 1 assist, and his expected assist kind of matches that. His XG is very low, 5 shots inside the box, 9 shots overall. His XG is very low, 5 shots inside the box, 9 shots overall. I'm just waiting for Tomiyasu to actually score his first goal for Arsenal. I think he deserves it, but if you look at his attacking threat objectively, then he hasn't really shown enough to really warrant that goal, but let's wait and see. You never know. 11 key passes, 1 big chance created. With him, you're mainly relying on the clean sheets, all the tackles and defensive stability that he offers, all of those key components, the interceptions, that can play a part in him accumulating bonus points. But yeah, I would hold Tomiyasu if I had him. Otherwise, I wouldn't look to bring him in, but if you have him, keep the Japanese international. And Tomiyasu has been a great signing for Arsenal, and I think he can still do very well in your FPL teams. Next up is Broja, and he's arguably a buy, but I don't think right now is exactly the best time to buy him in because we've got a big double in 26. You probably want to go for Weghorst or maybe Edouard or someone else. Now with Broja, I think he's definitely worth buying from game week 27 onwards. There's also the fact that Che Adams is showing very good form recently, so some of you may think, you know what, maybe I should go for him instead of Broja. I still think that I would go for Broja instead. And also in terms of the amount of points they both accumulated this season, 72, both of them, Che Adams and Broja. Broja's had fewer minutes, although you have to say the difference in minutes isn't actually that big. But with Broja's stats, decent, very good for a budget striker, but average if you're comparing it to the general FPL population. An XG of over 5, an XA of over 1, 8 big chances. We've spoken about him recently as well. I would definitely hold on to him, and he's someone definitely worth keeping an eye on to buy in game week 27. With the lack of strikers available, why not spend around 5.3 million on a striker like Broja, who will probably match most strikers, if not all of them right now, and he's got a great set of fixtures. I think he's definitely worth buying in the coming weeks, and if you have him right now, definitely don't think about going to Che Adams or a double game week striker. I'd actually hold on to Broja despite all of the temptations around you. Another Southampton player here in Tino Livramento. Now this is subject to change. If Livramento can get that spot back ahead of some very good fixtures, like I talked about with Broja, then I would keep him. You know, he could be quite valuable, a cheap defender playing against Norwich at home in 27 when a lot of teams are blanking, especially Liverpool, Chelsea and Arsenal, 3 major teams in FPL. But if that's not the case and Livramento continues to be on the bench, then I would look to sell. He could be the way in for a Burnley defender. So if you have enough money to go from Livramento to Tarkowski or maybe Ben Mee, then I would do so. The same goes for a Wolves defender. I think they offer great value up until the end of the season. So that's what I would do. Otherwise, if Livramento actually plays in 26, you don't make the transfer, you keep him for another week. He starts and it looks like he's going to be nailed for the long term, then I would keep him. But for the time being, considering all the benchings he's had recently, I would look to sell Livramento right now, but that is subject to change. His stats across the season, decent or pretty good for a budget defender, but nothing really special, of course. An XA of over one big chance created, and he started at 4 million, and he had a very good spell towards the beginning of this season. Hasn't really continued that. Southampton are struggling to keep clean sheets, but they are causing problems even for some of the best teams in the country, including United and Spurs. So with Livramento, it's just a case of, is he going to start? I think that might be the case. He might get his spot back, but for the time being, until that happens, I think he's a sell. This is the last Arsenal player I'm talking about in this video, I promise you that. But Martinelli for me is a sell because he's missing that first game in Double Gameweek 26 and then he's got that blank in 27, so it's not really worth bringing him in. And if you have him, you can move him on to Saka or maybe someone else from another team entirely. His stats across the season, okay for a budget midfielder, but nothing special. An XA of just over 2 and an XG of almost 4. 7 big chances are pretty impressive for his price tag, and apparently in recent training sessions Martinelli has been deployed as the number 9, but I've heard that before and it hasn't happened just yet. But maybe they want someone with a bit more cutting edge and also tenacity and also just energy and pressing up front in Martinelli. But Lacazette, the thing about him is that he actually improves those behind him and gives them more space to operate in. So Saka, Smith Rowe, Odegaard and all these players actually have more chance and more space to score goals themselves. But Martinelli, he's worth considering in the future, but right now, because he has no double in 26, he's blanking in 27. Saka's proving to be a better option at the moment. I would go for them instead, and if not, go for another team entirely. You could consider Rafinha. If you want to go there, you could go for Coutinho and maybe just go for those with better fixtures, at least for the time being, no blanks at all, and maybe some of those that double in 26. But with Martinelli, he's definitely someone who has so much potential and he could become a really good FPL option one day. But right now, I'd look to sell him. Whenever he's featured in these videos, Gallagher's always a buy or a hold. But right now, I think it's time to sell. And a bit similar to Martinelli, he's missing one of those games in Game Week 26. And this time it's with Chelsea. He can't play against his parent club, but he will play the other game against Watford where he can do very well. But I'd still look to sell him because he's got no double. The fixtures are very good until the end of the season, but his returns over the last 5 and 10 game weeks have been so poor and very sporadic. The occasional big haul, just like he did at the beginning of the season, but there he showed more consistency. And right now, with all the options Palace have at their disposal, I just don't really see Gallagher performing to the same heights as he did at the beginning of this campaign. His stats across the season pretty good around his price tag. 9 big chances as well, 7 goals, 5 assists, all healthy returns, decent shot volume. His XG and XA are pretty healthy, 5 big chances created, so he's had a fantastic season. But I think it is the time to sell, and there's plenty of options in midfield. You can go for Cornet if he's available. He's got 2 doubles in a row, so with the amount of midfielders at your disposal, and also with Crystal Palace having Chelsea as one of those games and Gallagher's not able to even play in that one, I would probably look to sell him. But that's not to discount him permanently. I think after that Man City game, you could look to bring him back in. But right now, I probably would look to sell Conor Gallagher. We're now on to the final section, the skip section. And for me, Zaha is a skip. A lot of people have talked about the fact that I haven't really mentioned him too much in my videos. He's a great dribbler and he can be very good in FPL from time to time, but very inconsistent. And the only Palace players I'd really consider are Edouard, Analyse, and they are rotation risks. Gallagher's also worth mentioning, of course, even though I think he's a sell. He's been their best player FPL-wise this season. With Zaha, though, not that many goals from open play. He even missed a penalty recently. His XG and XA are decent, and the stats are okay, but I don't know, there's just not enough consistency there, and there's so many midfielders to choose from. Do you really want to spend one of those midfielder spots on Zaha when for a similar price you can get Coutinho or Rafinha? For me, I just don't buy it, and just for a bit more you can get Jota, and then you want to obviously have Salah, Bruno Fernandes, Son, and Kevin De Bruyne, Sterling. So for me, there's not really a spot for Wilfried Zaha. There's also Saka, who I spoke about earlier, and you can go for him. I don't think he's the worst idea in the world. Palace have good fixtures up until the end of the season, but I probably wouldn't go for Zaha, and I think he's worth skipping. And if you want to go for a Palace midfielder, I'd even go for Gallagher, Elise, and up front I'd go for Edouard. But that's not to say Zaha's a bad option, but I just think there are better from other teams and even from the same club in which he plays for. This is a bit of an odd one. Now, if you have Pope, I'd definitely hold on to him. He's got 2 doubles in a row, so it doesn't really make sense to get rid of him. And if you have enough money to go from Foster to Nick Pope or something like that, then it makes sense. Or even a non-playing goalkeeper to cover Aaron Ramsdale when he blanks in 27, then I think he's worth buying. But to spend almost 5.5 million on a goalkeeper from Burnley, I think that's way too much money. And also, you've got Jose Sarr, Sanchez, De Gea and Ramsdale. I think they're the 4 best value for money in terms of the goalkeeper position. So I'd go for any one of those over Nick Pope. And you can also cover Burnley with Tarkowski, with Ben Mee or someone else. So I probably wouldn't go for Nick Pope, despite the fact that, yeah, look, he's a good goalkeeper. He's been producing some good returns recently. Burnley have improved recently and have been keeping a few clean sheets and also causing problems to Man United and Liverpool, but only 5 clean sheets this season. Their expected clean sheets is just under 4. Big chances conceded 38. Their XGC is just over 31 with 23 goals conceded and over 300 shots conceded. So these stats aren't great, and there's a bit of an overperformance in terms of the amount of goals they're conceding compared to what they're expected to. But those 2 doubles in a row, look, Pope can be very good in those double game weeks and he has proven himself in the past, but I just think with Tarkowski and Ben Mee you can find a bit more value there, and from the goalkeepers you've got 4 of the best that I always go on about in all these videos. So I think if you don't have Pope, you can just skip him. If you have him, keep him and probably enjoy his points, but beyond Game Week 27 he's not really someone you want until the end of the season. And the final player to feature in this video is Raul Jimenez. This might be a bit of a weird one. He just scored against Spurs. He loves playing against them, and a lot of people are looking to bring him in. There's no striker that's showing any form, and Jimenez has shown a bit recently, so why not go for him? And that's true, and I think he's not the worst player in the world, and the same goes for Lacazette. Either of these, or even both of them, could be very good if you're looking for a striker around 7 or 8 million. But I still just don't see it. And if you look at Jimenez's returns over the entire season, 5 goals and 3 assists, so many blanks, and I don't know, I just don't see the consistency yet. And even when he does score, he doesn't even get the bonus points like he used to, and his ceiling isn't that high. Then again, which striker is actually producing on a regular basis? No one. And who's actually getting big returns most weeks? No one once again. But I would rather have Broja, Maupay, probably Weghorst than Edouard right now. That's not to say Jimenez is a bad option. He can still do very well for you. But then beyond Game Week 26, and the fixtures aren't great there anyway, they've got West Ham away, Crystal Palace at home, Everton away and Leeds at home. Some decent fixtures sprinkled in between, but even that West Ham fixture isn't great there in Game Week 27. 9 big chances for the Mexican, 3 big chances created, 27 key passes, 32 shots inside the box, 41 overall, and an XG of under 6 and an XA of 3.33. Decent stats, nothing special, but also in terms of the goal output, just haven't really seen anything there to suggest that Jimenez is now suddenly going to be really good, because before that goal against Spurs, I mean, this is what I think anyway, it's just my opinion. I don't think many people would have mentioned him. Now, I have considered him. I don't think he's someone that we should just completely avoid forever. But right now, I just don't really think it's the time to get him when Broja's got a really good run of fixtures up until, well, you could argue the end of the season. You've got Edouard and you've even got Weghorst if he's available. Then you've also got Dennis, who you probably want to keep at least for this double game week if you have him, although he's been really poor. But yeah, I just don't think it's the time for Jimenez right now, and I don't really see the appeal beyond Game Week 26, and the double isn't that great anyway. And with Wolves, I would rather cover them with their goalkeeper or some of their defenders like Nuri, Cody and Saiss, you know the names already, Kilman. And in midfield, not really looking at any of them. In attack, if I had to go for a Wolves attack of any sort, it would be Jimenez, but I prefer their defensive coverage by far. And Wolves are a team to maybe draw 0-0 or win 1-0, if anything. And I don't think their ceiling to score that many goals is that high. But at the same time, consider Jimenez. If you really want him, go for it. but just from a personal perspective, I just haven't seen enough and too much inconsistency, so I would avoid the Mexican and I would suggest skipping him, but always it's up to you and play the game the way you want to. So that's it. We've covered 12 players, free to buy, hold, sell, and skip. Let me know what you think. If there are any that you disagree with, then let me know down in the comment section below. I can see some of you may be disagreeing with the Jimenez one, and I can understand that. But if you enjoy this video, smash the like button and subscribe if you're new. Let's get this video to 150 likes and let's get to 10,000 subscribers. We're very close. So thank you to everyone who's already done so. And you can also become a channel member by clicking the join button, and you can check the description below for a list of all the perks. So that'd be much appreciated. Thank you to all the channel members that have already signed up, like Aranya, Rock and Roll, and Yarang, who are in the Captain and Legend tiers, and there's some very good perks there for you that I think you will enjoy. You can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and on Twitter and Instagram actually, we're close to 1,000 followers, so be sure to follow there as well, and it also helps your chances of featuring in future rating your team's videos, so that would be much appreciated as well. Good luck with Game Week 26, and also UCL Fantasy if you're playing that as well, and check out my content for that if you haven't already, and enjoy the football as always, and I'll see you next time.